What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Astrobot yet again. I want to talk about 5 reasons to be excited for this game. A lot of them have to do with the game itself. One of them has to do with kind of what comes after. But let's jump into this list. At number 1, fun. And I think it's a very important word. I think when you think of the gaming industry and, that escapism, right? But sometimes gaming isn't necessarily fun, or some games aren't exactly fun. Maybe they're more one thing oriented versus another. There is a purity when it comes to a game that you kind of just sit back and you just say, you know what, this is just an absolute blast. And I think if you played Astro's Playroom and if you've seen Astrobot, hopefully you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from. I think that's what this game is going to provide. I think you're going to hear people just talk about how, firstly, hopefully good of a game it is, but also just what a blast of a game that it is. And it might have to do with the platforming. It might have to do with the speedruns or the cameos or things we're actually going to talk about in this video. But kind of as a blanket or like an umbrella type statement, right? Fun. I think people are going to have a ton of fun with this game. And not only do I think that, some games aren't exactly even fun, but also I think just in the grand scheme of things, this might be one of the most fun games that is coming out this fall. Okay, number 2, I'm going to go for the challenge / the speed runs. This was I don't even know if I want to call it like an underappreciated, underrated type thing in Astro's Playroom, but I do think it's something that has a little bit of value into it, that when you think about Astro, you think about the 80 levels, right? You think about some of the boss stuff. You think about the game itself, Dualsense and the platforming and stuff, but one very, very cool aspect of Astro's Playroom that I got into a little bit, but I didn't take it too seriously, were the speed runs or, challenge runs, whatever you want to call it. They are returning, and there promises kind of to be more of them now than there were back with Astro's Playroom. So I'm very excited for this. I'm very excited to kind of, I do like it. In my core, I am kind of competitive. I wouldn't say I'm the most competitive person in the planet, but, if I feel or if I think that I could potentially get into a higher ranking on a leaderboard, I will try. And I was recently replaying Arkham Asylum from 2009, right? I tried to get myself actually quite high on the leaderboards for some of those combat trials. Something like Astro's Playroom, I replayed that a few weeks ago as well, and I didn't get super high. I think maybe I got in the thousands, just the single digit thousands on a few of them, and some of them again to the tens of thousands. But I think with all of us kind of playing these games, this game specifically, right, all at the same time, I'm excited to see how I do, because I feel like I can push myself. I think I'm in the prime of my career here. Hand-eye is better than it's ever been, and it's probably only going to get worse from here. This is my chance. This is my chance to make history, and I intend to. So number 3 is the Dualsense, specifically the controller. So we know that at the team, they kind of, at Asobi, right, they actually have a small portion of them just dedicated to kind of understanding the controller, in and of itself. And in actual interviews, I think the game director has talked about part of the responsibilities of Team Asobi is to work on maybe controllers in general, not necessarily even the Dualsense. So I think they have more behind the scenes stuff, if even maybe what comes to future controllers than you might think. And what that means, when it comes to Astrobot, is they're kind of on they're the cutting edge, right, of technology for it. And you think to Astro's Playroom, and truly Astro's Playroom and then maybe Returnal. And Returnal does it really well, but I would say a little bit less than Astro's Play. Astro's Playroom uses the Dualsense, I think, the most and also consistently the best, right? Returnal is, I think, really, really good in some places, but we've really never had a game to push the controller. And for me, it's my favorite controller ever created, right? I've been around a long time. I've played with many different types of controllers of different systems. I really think the Dualsense is the best one, and it's not being supported as it should. Really, PlayStation has had a problem with this for a while. Even the PS Vita kind of had this problem. You had a tearaway take advantage of it, but very few games would actually take advantage of, the back touch for the PS, maybe a Gravity Rush, right? But it has been a problem where you have, and really, PlayStation, I would say specifically, has had really good accessories, and then just there hasn't been, the support necessary to push it to the next level. Luckily, we're getting a second go in the same era, in the same generation. The next game from these guys could very easily be PS6 and the new controller, right? So, this might be it. This might be the pinnacle of the DualSense. And, yeah, I don't know, playing Astro's Playroom, again, for those that have played it and can kind of relate, it's something something special, not just the game itself, but also like literally holding the controller in your hand. You don't get that kind of feel, and just the way that they do adaptive triggers, and you can feel Astro going around or ice skating and things like that. Small things, right? You really don't get that with 99% of the games that are releasing. So I'm super excited, even if it's the same stuff, which I imagine some of it will be the same stuff, right? Kind of the more gratifying stuff, like maybe that claw machine. But then, if they add to it, or they do maybe new features with the Dualsense we've never seen before, right? I'm super, super excited for that. Number 4 is the cameos / the heritage / the history, whatever you want to call it, the respect for PlayStation. Not that like every game needs to, respect like the source material or respect, like the platform that it's on, but, a big part of the DNA of Astro has been, cameos and accessories for PlayStation. Like seeing the iToy pop up, and that was one of the very earliest accessories I ever had, right? Growing up as a kid, playing the Star Wars game and being god-awful. I also just think the iToy didn't see me properly, but regardless, they did such a great job with Astro's Playroom. And, things like that, I'm excited. Like, will they use, like Astro's Playroom is literally the PS5, right? Like, it's taking place in different components, like the cloud chamber, whatever they're called. It's so cool, and it's so different. And, this one, all of these different levels, so it's going to be different. Like, I don't expect to explore the interior of the PS5 again, right? But, like, and they've said some of these levels, I think less than 50, but more than one. So say 20, 30, 40 levels, right? Are going to be inspired from like legitimate PlayStation. Like if there's a Sly Cooper map, I'm gonna cry. You know what I mean? Like, or God of War or Uncharted or Infamous or anything like that. You think the bigger ones have the highest probability, of getting an actual level, right? So like that in itself is awesome. That some of the levels might be themed. The costumes, the weapons, like if you can use Kratos' axe and stuff, saving them. 150 cameos, I believe, just in the bots. I mean, not even just like the surface level ones. There's deep cut PlayStation games that even myself, I'm not familiar with all of them, and I think it's just really, really cool that you can maybe you in your childhood really appreciate a certain like kind of cult hit. If it was on their radar, right? It's possible it's in this game, and like that's just, again, where do you really have a game that has that many Easter eggs, has that much history and kind of respect for the entire history, not just necessarily even of PlayStation, because a lot of these things are going to be third party, right? There's going to be, I mean, you even look at what happened with Astro's Playroom. Like there's a Pyramid Head in there as well, right? And Silent Hill isn't like just exclusive to PlayStation. I mean, historically it's kind of leaned towards it, I guess, right? But things like that, super excited for. And number 5 is the future. Just, playing out the future. So, we've talked about this quite a bit on the channel. This is important. It is. And I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. And I really try to stick by that because I believe that's what's right? I'm not here to tell you must buy this game. But supporting this game, I think, does send a message. And, I mean, you can argue that for, like, plenty of games, right? Like, if you buy a game, it sends a certain kind of message. If you don't buy a game, it sends another. For this game in particular, I just feel it's important. And, I mean, for me, it's more important than other things. That could be different based off of you, right? We might not think the same. But for me, it's like this has a chance to kind of bring a, not necessarily like a new era, but almost like bring back an old era, right? Like this is how you might get Sly Cooper. This is how you might get Jak and Daxter. And there's no guarantee, but even just, is this how you get Astrobot 2? And if the game isn't supported, is it how you don't get an Astrobot 2? You know what I mean? Even something as simple as that. Like, I think Astro is freaking cool. I think it's a great mascot, a great kind of new mascot, right? I feel like it can be very popular for PlayStation. I think PlayStation would really thrive with having platformers kind of back on the system. It's what I grew up with, so I am biased, right? Like, I literally grew up with Crash Bandicoot. And then I went a little bit to Spyro, but it was mainly like Crash and then Sly Cooper were kind of my big ones. Mix in Ratchet and Clank, mix in Jak and Daxter, in my history. But those were my big two. My history with PlayStation is platformers, right? And it's like, it's important to me. I know it's important to other people. I get that it's also not important to everybody, but I think Astro doing well shows Sony, okay, we can do other things. And, Lego Horizon, I think, is a sign of that as well, that, like, they're willing to try different things as well. But, live service, open world games, like, there's been these big eras of PlayStation recently, just in the last like 5-10 years, right? Open worlds, and then now more recently live service, but backing out of live service. Can we get an injection of a couple cheap platformers that take 2-3 years to make? They're not 30 hours, they're 10 hours long max, and they're great times, right? They're not even $70, maybe they're 40, 50, 60. I think that's great, and it can work well with the other games you have. Give us The Last of Us 3, you keep going with the Horizons and things like that. You have your big open worlds, right? And then throw a Sly Cooper in every so often, right? Like those are, I think that's for the best. Now, my opinion's just one, right? But I'm going to be supporting this game and doing what I can to kind of spread that message that I think this game is going to be worth it, and I hope it is worth it. You know, at the end of the day, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about this game, that we're in for a good time here. But you let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.